All right, this third lesson on the Minor Prophets. This is fall semester 2021. And we're looking at the book of Joel. And last week we ended with this screen. I'm going to continue on with it a little bit. Joel, in Joel chapter 2, talks about in the last days, in the tribulation period. Remember the theme of the book of Joel. The theme of the book is the day of the Lord. And so he's talking about what's going to occur in the tribulation period. Remember, he's not talking about what's going to occur in the church because he doesn't know there's a church. It's still a mystery. It won't be revealed until the church age, after the church age actually begins. And so we know that what he said wasn't the fulfillment for all the events haven't taken place. Because he said in those days, you'll have dreams, the young men have dreams, visions, and such. But there are also, the sun will be turned, will be darkened and the moon into blood. Well, that hasn't happened yet. During the Great Tribulation, though, Matthew 24 talks about it. Because remember, Matthew 24, a very important chapter. This is Olivet Discourse, or the Mount of Olives. Jesus talking to the disciples. They just walked from Jerusalem up to the Mount of Olives, a very short trip. In verse 3 of Matthew 24, disciples asked Jesus, "What shall be the sign of thy coming?" Okay. Not the sign of the rapture. They couldn't have asked that question because they didn't know there was a rapture. They still didn't have the church yet. How can there be a rapture? And so Matthew 24 confirms, Revelation 8, 7 and 12, and Revelation 15, 8 confirms that these things will happen in the tribulation period. So if these have a tribulation period, then the dreams, visions, and such will also happen in the tribulation period. The phrase, the day of the Lord, is actually used 5 times in the book of Joel. And considering that there's only 3 chapters, that's a lot. So once in chapter 1, 3 times in chapter 2, and once again in chapter 3. There are a lot of prophetical terms for the tribulation period. We'll actually look at those in the book of Revelation. But again, the emphasis, of course, stays upon the tribulation period. It began with the locust plague as a visual example of what can happen and how bad it was in the early days. But Joel going on to tell them, you old men, has there been this bad before? Nope, never been this bad. Well, these are the good old days, because it's going to get worse. And you think about that, because the locust plague, and you consider that the good old days, well, when tribulation period comes, everything, as bad as it is in the world today, wherever you live at, in the horrors of what's going on in Afghanistan or other countries, where it doesn't make any difference. As bad as it is, it's going to be worse. The deluge of soldiers, the huge amount of soldiers. It says, "Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand." And it is at hand today. Meaning that phrase simply means it can happen at any moment. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of the mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devours the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. They shall run like mighty men, they shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march every one in his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. They shall run to and fro into the city, They shall run upon the wall, they shall climb upon the houses, they shall enter in at the windows like a thief. So, in the tribulation period, even though the Antichrist comes in and he makes everything good in the world, as far as the economy and all that's going on, and people getting along well with each other, remember, that's one level of it, but it's also the time when the Holy Spirit no longer restrains evil. And so while these people on the surface might be getting along together, sin will go even far more extreme than what is today. And so, you know, people will shoot you over nothing today. People kill you for $5. I mean, there are people out there who'd be more than willing to do it. They wouldn't give a second thought. How much more so in the tribulation period? And then when the food starts getting scarce in the middle because of the great war that begins, and once food is scarce, then your neighbors will be shooting you to get your food. You know, so it's big bad. The deliverance of the saints. People will be getting saved immediately in the tribulation period. The Bible tells us from every nation, kindred, and tongue, the multitudes will get saved. Most of those will probably die in the tribulation period. We know the 144,000 witnesses of Revelation 7 will begin as soon as the tribulation period starts, and they will be martyred by the middle of the tribulation period. And all the other Christians, many of them will be martyred. But some will survive. Those who receive Jesus during the tribulation will enter the millennium, those who survive. Right? Because yes, there'll be a lot of death in the tribulation period. Matthew 24:13. I'm going right back to that Mount of Olivet Discourse. What things going to be like in the tribulation period. In verse 13, Jesus says here that those who endure to the end shall be saved. Now, get the word saved, make sure you get the right definition of the word saved, because in churches we use that word saved all the time, meaning what? That somebody accepted Christ. And that's true, that's a correct word. I'm not saying don't use that. But the word saved means delivered. Right? And so Matthew 24:13, those who endure to the end will be delivered. Delivered where? Into the millennial kingdom. So, you know, they're alive at the beginning of the tribulation period here, and they get saved right after, and they survive all of the to the middle tribulation period when they have some probably religious liberty in the beginning. But now, 3.5 years into it, when Antichrist proclaims himself to be God, the food is going to go away quick because everybody's focused on war. Rationing will take place. The wealthy will get more. The poor will get nothing. Like it is too many times. They will have to hide. They have to get food from whatever way they can get it. And they live all the way to the end. Jesus then comes back, the second coming with us. They live into the millennial kingdom in their physical body, and those are the ones who will, if they're not married at that point, they get married, they will have children, and live for another 1,000 years in a world that is far, far greater than it is today. The earth is going to basically restore itself to pre-flood days. Animals, there will be no poisonous, no vicious animals whatsoever. If you want a pet tiger that you want to sleep with in your bedroom, you can do that, I guess. It'd be kind of neat, you know, you think about this, because, I mean, they are beautiful creatures, you know. I'd love to touch a lion or a tiger to see what it felt like, but you're doing it today.
So you're saying that my dog, who I love to death, I'm going to see him in the millennium kingdom.
I would like to think so for my dog. Now I got a couple other dogs, and we had the phrase "all dogs go to heaven." Those two dogs will not go. No, I do. Animals don't have souls, you know. But when a kid asks me that, what I'll tell them is, well, in heaven, if you want your dog when you go to heaven to be there, it'll be there. because when they get to heaven, they're not going to want the dog bears. They'll know better than that. So, but anyway, dog may not now. I'd love to take that. The darkening of the skies. Joel here reports this: sun, moon, stars withdraw their light as the Lord prepares to battle. The earth shall quake before them. The heavens shall tremble. The sun and the moon shall be dark. Stars shall withdraw their shining. And the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great. For his strong that executes his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? Blow the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly. So, in these days, I mean, Armageddon, is what we're talking about here now, not the Gog and Magog war that lasts for 3.5 years, but Armageddon, when Jesus comes back, when all the lost are gathered together to attack him at his return, then there's a darkening.
Is that the last war?
No, it's the last, because the last war is at the end of the millennial kingdom, the second Gog and Magog war.
Okay.
When Satan is loosed and gathers the lost at that point. Yeah, there's 3 wars coming up. Gog and Magog, which will last 3.5 years. That starts in the middle of the tribulation to the end. At the end, as soon as Gog and Magog is finished, then Armageddon is when Jesus then destroys the lost at that point, defeats those. And then 1,000-year millennial reign. At the end of 1,000 years, Satan is loosed. And when he's loosed, he gathers all the lost together. And that's the second Gog and Magog.
Oh, okay.
So you have Gog and Magog, Armageddon, second Gog and Magog. And there'll be plenty of wars in the tribulation period as well prior to that. Even, remember, Revelation 6, the Antichrist rides in on a white horse, which symbolizes peace, but he has a bow in his hand. So you're coming in peace, but you have a weapon. It's a false peace. I mean, and remember, he also defeats 3 kingdoms. So there's still going to be a lot. Destruction of the sinners, says God will utterly consume his enemies who attempt to destroy him, the city and his people. It says, proclaim ye among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all men of war draw near, let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say I'm strong. This is during the tribulation period when, I mean, it's just chaos. I remember Isaiah 2:4 said, he shall judge among the nations, they shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares. Right? Isaiah says beat the swords into plowshares. Joel says plowshares into swords. Why? Isaiah is talking about the millennial kingdom. We know, the Bible tells us that when the millennial kingdom begins, there'll be 7 months. The people that survive the tribulation period will spend the first 7 months burying the dead. I mean, you talk about how much that is, will be. Then it also says, and there'll be 7 years, the first 7 years of just destroying weapons of war. So that's when they will beat their swords into plowshares. In the tribulation, plowshares into swords. In the millennium, swords into plowshares. And this Armageddon, a few different names for this this place we'll look at here. But I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. It's the same, it is, R at the beginning of this word is a Hebrew prefix, I guess means mountain. So this is Mount Megiddo. But at the base of Mount Megiddo, which is north west Israel, the valley from Mount Megiddo goes all the way down through Jerusalem. And it's known to have different names, Valley of Jehoshaphat. I'm going to plead with them for my people, for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, part of my land. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. So all the lost will be gathered at the end of the tribulation period. Valley of Megiddo is another name for this same valley. Where Asa, who was one of the good kings of Judah, burned his mother's idols. Hezekiah, another good king, 13th king. He destroyed the idols there. I say 13th king, technically it should be 13th ruler. Because it was 19 kings and one queen. Josiah, who was the 16th ruler, one of the best king that Judah ever had. Hezekiah's son Manasseh and his father was Ahaz. So Josiah, no, I'm sorry, not his father. Yeah, except for Ahaz. Yeah. So in between the good kings, who were several bad, Josiah here cleans up the place. Great revival took place during his reign before he was assassinated. You really don't have to worry about writing all this down. Just give you a view here of what's going on in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Has been a favorite burial ground for Jews for thousands of years. You go to Israel. In fact, a lot of times you'll see pictures of Israel. You'll see these graves in the picture. This is on the eastern side of the old city of Jerusalem. And I don't know how well you can see it from where you're at, but like this sepulcher here, it's a lot of rocks on top of it. And the way they do it there, if you ever watch Schindler's List, the worst movie ever made that I think every adult should watch. It says the horrors of the Holocaust. I mean, it's horrible. I said worst movie because it's what happened was real. But the Jews, upon when somebody dies, if you visit the grave, you lay a rock on somebody who has been a ministry to your life somehow. You know, they've helped you in whatever way. So if you go to the grave, there's a lot of rocks on there. That person really did a lot. There's no rocks at all. They do that and they plant trees for the person who dies. Well, the Jews believed that when the Messiah comes, that he'll go through the eastern gate. And that's true. That is what's going to happen. But they also have weird views about things, and they think that if they are buried there, then they get to see Jesus before anybody else, because he's going to come through where they're buried at. Weird beliefs kind of thing. They believe final resurrection, trumpet will sound, and the body of the righteous, regardless of where they were originally buried on earth, was rolled back underground to Jehoshaphat. So some think that, when a Jew dies, they immediately bury them. And in fact, many of them on the same day. They have to do it before sunset. And they put them in caskets made of wood with holes in the bottom of it. Right? And they do that because they want the casket to dissolve as quick as possible. They don't embalm or anything like that. Some believe, though, the Jews believe that if they were buried in Winston, when the Messiah comes, that their bodies will go through the earth and end up in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. And be there waiting. Just superstitious.
Is there any particular reason why they bury on top of the ground, like they do in New Orleans? I know New Orleans have a high water level, but
Yeah, that's, I don't know. I've never really looked that up. I don't know if they do it everywhere in Israel. I don't remember seeing any other graveyards other than this. But this is a historic graveyard, you know, so, and there may have been. I don't know. I have to look that up because I don't know if there's a particular reason why they do that. Then the punishment involved in the tribulation period, put you in the sickle for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. So actually, here's another name. We've got Armageddon, the valley of Megiddo. We've got Valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of Jezreel, and now the valley of decision. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion, utter his voice from Jerusalem. The heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of his children. All right, let's take a break.